Welcome back to this series of conversations at the Dark Reading News Desk at RSA. Terry Sweeney here with Dark Reading, and joining us now is Omer Azaria, Vice President of Research and Development at Sysdig. Omer, thanks so much for joining us today.
Happy to be here.
We are talking about the real threats that security teams should worry about in the cloud. This is a huge topic. Try to sketch it in for us. Where is security teams' attention focused, where cloud security is concerned?
So it's a big topic.
Sure.
I would say, if I'm trying to break it down, kind of thinking about the big buckets, the first one will be probably misconfiguration. Companies started moving to the cloud, deploy Kubernetes in the cloud, using cloud services. A lot of it, we're just starting to see a proliferation of configuration and control planes from different aspects of applications deployed in the cloud. And obviously, the more complex the configuration, the more exposed you are. So I would say the number one problem is probably misconfiguration that is happening that security teams need to pay attention to. The second thing, which is really interesting, is actually lateral movement, which is not a new concept, right? I mean, something that everybody's familiar with, just becomes more dangerous in the cloud. And if you think about things like Log4j, Spring4j, those type of vulnerabilities, if you have an application that is exposed in the cloud, let's say for Log4j, you're just one API token away from someone spinning up Bitcoin miners in your cloud account, and maybe even trying to access your S3 bucket that is obviously globally exposed. So it becomes very simple to make a big impact on the organization security-wise. So just two quick ones.
Well, so I was surprised to learn how little information cloud service providers provide customers with regard to security issues like configuration. This is a kind of a head scratcher. Perhaps the situation has shifted, but where are we with just the guidance that the AWSs of the world or Azure tell customers with regard to configuration?
So they're actually trying. I would say across GCP, AWS, Azure, and obviously the other clouds, there is an attempt to talk about best practices to actually surface configuration issues in many ways. But again, the problem starts with the proliferation of findings that security teams need to absorb and act on. So you can go and run the AWS Well Architected, for example, which is a well-known framework on how to think about configuration in the cloud, and you're going to see dozens, if not hundreds, of findings coming your way, and then what to do about it becomes a big issue. So this is one of the areas that many companies and vendors like Sysdig are trying to provide a better solution. It's not just about surfacing the findings, but also about telling you what's important or what's more impactful for you to go and address right now.
Sure. In that vein, I mean, what kind of workload security impacts have occurred as a result of current app design patterns or even DevOps practices?
So everyone's familiar with microservices. Usually the implementation of microservices using container is almost the best way to go and architect your application around that concept.
Okay.
Now, as you move to containers, something really interesting is happening. What used to be a monolith and a single package that you use with a single vulnerability, all of a sudden becomes 50, if not hundreds of small applications with the same vulnerability. And again, so this proliferation of vulnerabilities due to the shift to microservices, a big issue for security. Second thing is that a lot of the architecture is based on infrastructure as code. Infrastructure as code is the ability to go and look at the infrastructure and have things like YAML files, Terraform in order to describe the environment, deploy new services, and do that really rapidly and really quickly. So the pace of change and also this another layer requires different thinking about security. Again, two quick examples. There are more, but this is some of the things that the new architecture, microservices architecture, introduced into the world that's making security team rethink how they do things and maybe different elements that they need to plug into the pipeline in order to have better security.
In that vein, should cloud services and containers be treated like endpoints similar to hosts or employee workstations, or are there other unique security concerns that arise here?
So the short answer is no. I would not do that. And here is why. Generally speaking, let's say EDR solution and EDR-like solutions were built with node and host in mind. While this is a big and important attack surface for sure, Cloud native solutions like Sysdig, again, really started thinking about the abstraction layers that were built on top of nodes. So nodes are important, but not as important as things like container, workload, cluster, all the way to the cloud. And that level of visibility is super important for many, many reasons. The most important one is context. If you see a security issue occurring on some node, it's very difficult to map that security issue to the right team who needs to fix it or even how to fix it. While when you know what is the namespace, for example, you can go and map it quite easily to the team and go and knock on someone's door and say, hey, you know, this happened, what should I do about it? And just gather enough context to go and address the security issue.
Talk for a minute, if you would, about how cloud threats impact an organization's environment on premises.
So it's an interesting thing, because when you're saying cloud and on-premise, the immediate reaction is, why do you even talk about both those things in the same sentence? But practically what's happening is a lot of on-prem customers and users are trying to adopt Cube and the cloud native way of developing applications and deploying applications on-prem as well. So what they're doing is to take their data centers, deploying Cube, doing the same abstraction that I mentioned before, and deploy the application with the same CI/CD at the same pace, which is pretty rapid. And then the same issues are exposed, which is, again, configuration issues, vulnerabilities, and proliferated.
Why are security teams so challenged with detecting and responding to threats in the cloud environment?
So few reasons. I would say the first one is the ephemeral nature of cloud. So what used to be very static, you have a database server, you have a bunch of nodes that are pretty static, became a very dynamically changing environment. Now developers, as I mentioned, infrastructure as code, can spin up a database very quickly, take it down, or spin up a Lambda function, or even a container and take it down. And then when the security incident happens, that asset that might have been impacted is no longer there. Then what do you do? How do you collect data? How do you collect information? You don't have the context. The first question that you might ask is, what is that thing? And you're going to go back to the environment, and again, it's not existing anymore. And the second thing is, how do I even collect data or even realize what was the impact of that security incident? Again, it does not exist. And the thinking about how to do security in those ephemeral, ever-changing environment is very different. You need to think automation. You need to think about auto-collecting information at the time of the incident. You need to think, how do I go and gather enough context to even know what to do about it? So all of that is happening in the cloud, and again, making it very challenging for security teams.
Omer, I'm sure you get this question a lot, but take us out with one thing that cloud customers can do to improve their overall security.
So I would start with the baseline, which is to follow the best practices, and there are a lot of them right now. Again, I mentioned before AWS best practices, GCP best practices. It's a great baseline. I would go and look at that and try and look at my environment and see what I can do, what are the low-hanging fruits that I can address right now to be more secure. And the second thing is that to think about the operational aspect of security, which means security is no longer a reactive thing. You need to really think about how to take security, shift it left, whether you have enough runtime context to be effective, and how you address security are the two main things that someone can do in order to improve as they start their journey into the cloud, or as they're kind of moving to the cloud.
Omer, great insights on the timely topic of cloud security. Thanks for doing the Dark Reading News Desk today.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
We've been talking with Omer Azaria of Sysdig. This has been Terry Sweeney with Dark Reading. Thanks for joining us for this News Desk segment. We'll see you next time.